Today's AskReddit post. What is the craziest freakout you've ever seen in public? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. There's this famous lady, where I'm from, that checked into a hotel, but they would not accept her dogs, so she took her pants down and poop on the carpet in the lobby. You win. Yep. I was at Chipotle and some woman had a meltdown trying to order multiple orders for her family and started screaming at the cashier. She was like, "Why are you laughing at me? What is the matter with you?" Exclamation mark. The cashier was some poor teenage girl who was definitely not laughing at her, and she handled it like a pro. The woman then proceeded to pay and sit down and eat with her husband and kids like nothing happened. The Chipotle cashier has obviously seen some poop and been reforged into something beyond human. Perhaps she *SHOULD* have laughed. Worked at a big name grocery store during Thanksgiving one year. Store had one of those meal deals where they sell you a bundle of Thanksgiving essentials for like $75 or whatever. We had a known troublemaker. The company's ours has her on a blacklist for complaints and would call and laugh with the store manager after she would file one that would always try her luck on deals, discounts, or coupons. The limit to this meal deal was like 2 per household. She proceeds to try and buy about 6 or 7 bundles. Manager says she'll only get 2 and the rest sold at the retail price. Some back and forth arguing begins and she doesn't get her way. She then begins to smash gallons of milk she had in her cart on the ground, opens up a carton of eggs and begins throwing them at not only the manager, but innocent bystanders as well. Why did the store continue letting her in? This baseball mom in American Eagle chewing out my wife at the top of her lungs because baseball mom's mouth got her son kicked out of baseball permanently. Meanwhile, after a 20-minute tirade, security escorted her out of the mall. The lady behind the counter looks at us and asks what that was all about. We exchange looks and answer not a clue. Never seen her before. Who would breed with this person? Another idiot just like her. A boys hockey game. They were about 10, where one of the dads was *SCREAMING* what are you doing at his son? And got so angry that he stormed out of the building. That poor kid had to ride home with his psycho dad later. I've both coached and refereed kids hockey, and this doesn't surprise me in the least. The kids are easy. They usually want to learn and get better, or just have fun. Both of those outlooks are fine. I can handle a parent questioning my ability, even though I probably played at a higher level than most of them, if they ever even played at all. But seeing too many kids almost be afraid of their parents got to be too much for me, and I don't really want anything to do with the youth aspect of the game anymore. In line at Five Guys about 8 years ago, tiny Asian woman throws a thermonuclear poop fit because Five Guys does not serve fresh brewed hot tea. Proceeds to grab 4 or 5 jumbo cups and runs to the fountain drinks machine and begins rage filling them before trying to run out of the restaurant. Dumps her armful of sodas in the parking lot and soaks herself in the process. Then just stands there screaming in frustration for a second. Lol, what the hell? Caffeine withdrawal. Don't judge. Once when I worked overnights at Walgreens, this woman came up to me at like 3 AM and started screaming, accusing me of making her feet bleed because I was judging her with my negative vibes. Her feet were definitely not bleeding, which I could easily tell because she took her shoes off and put her feet on the counter. She then refused to pay for what she was buying because according to her the credit card reader emits radiation and she didn't want to get dosed with it. So instead she just ran away into the night. Why do all the psychos go to Walgreens? I was watching that show called Customer Wars and there were at least 6 different scenarios where the person was whacked out in a Walgreens. I was so happy when I left retail. Maybe not the craziest but the funniest. A group of college-aged people were out partying in Adams Morgan, a famous drinking neighborhood in DC. A guy takes a step out of the group in a hurry, clearly trying to put some distance between himself and another member. A girl steps out behind him and very sloppy drunk with tears streaming down her face yells, "I can't believe you would say that to me during my birthday month." It happened to me while I was serving on a Full House Saturday night. There was an elderly woman sitting with her family for a birthday. They weren't in my section and I hadn't spoken to them at all that night or ever. I was walking inside from the patio with a tray full of dirty dishes when I passed their table and the elderly woman grabbed the skirt of my dress, tripping me and in doing so causing the tray full of glasses and dishes to shatter on the ground before I fell on them. I had shards of ceramic and glass all over my body, thighs, chest, palms. It felt like someone had sliced open my skin 1,000 times. I tried to keep my composure, but the elderly woman, who was very much senile, started to yell at me, claiming that I gave her a parking ticket while I was covered in glass and blood trying to stand up without getting injured further. Her family tried to calm her down, but she must have had a lot of issues with parking tickets, since she started throwing cutlery at me and hit the family member that was restraining her. This ended when a few of the kitchen staff got in the way and my manager kicked the family out. Bartender picked the glass out of my skin with tweezers, since the owner wouldn't let me go to the hospital. What do you mean the manager would not let you leave? When something like happen and you want to go, you go. If the manager fires you or penalizes you, you sue. I was picking up a pizza and I always open the box to make sure it looks correct. I opened one box and it was 90% burnt. I told the girl, this is burnt. Could you please make another? She picked up the pizza and threw it at the wall. She huffed off and made another. She then later started texting me apologizing that it was the worst day of her life and she was the only one working. In all honesty, I feel for her. The fact that she apologized is golden. Same. It's good behavior that she at least apologized for doing that, lol. The lady that started throwing her own fesses at Tim Hortons employees. Hey, that was right around the corner from me. I can never go to that Tim is knowing there's been poo everywhere. Lucky. I saw a man screaming and swearing at a pharmacist in a Walgreens. Apparently he called and asked how much of an over-the-counter medicine they had, and the pharmacist said 2. Turns out that there were actually 3, and so he went off on the poor pharmacist for 15 minutes straight. He apparently needed all 3, but only brought enough of money for 2 because that bitch lied to me on the phone. It was to the point where I almost called the cops on him. What on earth? Exclamation mark. How dare that pharmacist mess up his meth recipe like that? I know. Come to think of it, he did have a bald head, a fedora, and dark sunglasses. I once witnessed a guy ransack his entire car looking for what I presumed to be missing money or drugs. I was across the street eating in my car when I hear this dude wailing, and I mean ultimate fear cries, from across a usually busy street. I think I was the only one who saw it, but I still remember the total despair of the scene. It could have been a missing doctor's note when I think about it now, but I hoped he found it. Maybe a winning lotto ticket. Prob the phone hash of some big tittied goth mommy he met at Club Haunted House the night the back deck at Club Aqua collapsed. Dude I work with legit believes everyone wants him fired, when really we just want him to do his job. He screamed at me multiple times in the office and has said me and my manager are conspiring to get him fired. It all came to a head when things got heated in a meeting between the 3 of us. He was sent 2 hours. I found out later that he ran away from the hour guy and into the VP's office, bursting through the door and diving onto the floor. Then army crawling under the desk saying, "You gotta help me, they're after me, they want me gone." It took the VP an hour to coax him out from under the desk, and then he got sent home for the rest of the week to cool off. That was 5 months ago, and he still works with me. You need a new job. Dude at the state/Lake Red Line station was minding his own business waiting for a train. Some other guy came up and slapped the little styrofoam taquilla carton out of the first dude's hand, obliterating some kind of sandwich all over the floor. I wanna say it was a Reuben. Anyway, the first dude had this look of stunned betrayal on his face. Clearly did not know the second guy at all. Reminded me of that little mean kangaroo that had his food stolen. He had a sandwich not 5 seconds ago. Somebody confronted the second guy, "Oh what the duck bro," and the guy goes, "You wanna die today?" Exclamation mark. Most frivolous nonsense out of nowhere I ever saw. I was working at a T-Mobile storefront in a mall in 2008 when a lady came in having an absolute temper tantrum about her bill. She refused to pay it and was upset that her service had been cut off. Within maybe 3 minutes of her outburst, someone had called mall security and they rolled up on 2 Segway scooters. They hit her with a taser. She pissed her pants and they literally dragged her out of the mall by her arms. I think about that moment in my life pretty frequently. This is the dream. Yesterday I witnessed a guy shouting at his backpack that was laying on the ground. He proceeded to kick it and throw it around in the middle of a major roadway. I can only imagine this through the lens of Dora the Explorer. Backpack. Backpack had it coming. You've elicited your last Ozomatherdica. I lived in a really poopty apartment complex. Lots of couples having fights. Screaming and yelling at all hours. Cops called all the time. The worst one was when some guy started throwing canned goods off his balcony at the cars below. Smashed tons of windshields. Dented hoods. The worst was the can of clam chowder that busted through a window and exploded all over the interior of a car. Poor guy. Could he get the smell out? Reminds me of my old neighbor. He smashed in the windshield of his own car with huge garden rocks because he was mad at his boyfriend. We used to have this elderly lady that would come into our big box retail store and complain that some of our cashiers wearing shirts with rainbows were violating her personal rights. Then one day she stated calling our managers the N-word and yelling at customers outside the same. She finally was kicked off the property, but not before running off with a cart full of stuff. The most satisfying thing was our shopping carts have an automatic locking wheel when you go to the edge of the property, and watching her yell obscenities all the way with stolen merchandise only to get to the boundary in the cart to lock up was justice porn in real life. She threw an even bigger fit and I had the biggest smile. The giddy anticipation of knowing her wheels were about to lock. When I was a kid, I was walking into the mall and some young man, not a teenager, probably college aged, was walking out. All of a sudden, a full-sized van pulled up. A bunch of guys grab him. He is screaming bloody murder. They shove him in the van, slide the door closed, and peel out. I was pretty much the only witness. No one believed me. Cameras didn't catch anything. And to this day, I don't know if it was a legitimate kidnapping or the beginning of a bachelor party, or could be frat hazing / secret college club initiation, or a scene from Old School. While I was a server, 22F age at the time, at a nice restaurant, I was sat at a table of 4 couples in their mid-40s. One wife was clearly inebriated, and the bartender told me she had a 1-drink limit during her stay. When she tried to order a second, and I had to tell her no, she started reaming me out loudly. The husband was trying to hush her and get her to settle down, but she was standing up and getting her finger in my face. This was year 4 of my serving experience, so I just stood there with a very passive expression. My manager came up beside me, put his hands on my shoulders, gently moved me aside, and stood in my place. The lady didn't even acknowledge the change and just kept going. They were asked to leave and eventually did. The hostess came up after and said, "Oh man, that was my English teacher. Mad props to your manager. That was a decent move." My aunt yelled at my uncle during a family vacation. Something like, "You back quote re not sleeping in our tent tonight." Why? He got too close to a snake. Stupid Sinterkoorsy snakes. Saw a lady rip her wig off and quit her job at Safeway. She said "duck this poop" and left. She had bright blue hair, as if the wig were part of the uniform. I can see her stomp into the house, slam her purse on the kitchen table, muttering, "They damn better have that wig when I pick up my check." My cousin's mother overturned a table because she had too much cheese on her burrito at Chipotle, so there's that. And that's why you can't call her Aunt Karen anymore. I was working in an OR that had a big treatment area where we had both mid-acuity patients that needed a cardiac monitor and psych patients. So we had a bunch of aggressive and restrained people. One of these people had a family member come in and start performing an exorcism entirely in Haitian Creole right in the middle of the air. So the patient is losing their poop, and this has set off multiple other people, and the room was immediately full of people screaming and trying to break out of restraints. Not exactly a freak out, but it was a bizarre lecture to me. I used to be a waiter at the financial district, and there is a frequent customer who works at Walls, and he ordered a dish that consists of linguine with lobster, and when the plate arrived, he lectured me that I should have been careful about how I place his plate. I didn't drop it in front of him. I simply lay his dish as gently as possible because I could have stained his $600 collar shirt. To me, it looked like a plain white collar shirt. I could have bought the same for $20. Rich folks are ducking weird and awful. He wasn't rich. The guy may have been making decent money, but he cared too much about his $600 shirt to have been truly wealthy. An actual rich dude would have dozens of shirts just like it and probably wouldn't even know how much they cost. Was waiting in the hospital when two guys come running down the hallway yelling that their dog had been hit by a car. Now, dog sounded a lot like DAWG. It was a normal hospital, so the staff mobilizes to treat a guy that got hit by a car. Two other guys come running up with a dog, not a dog. The staff realizes it's a non-starter and tell the guys to take it to a vet. They can't treat it there. Guys start yelling that the hospital has to help him. Shit gets wild. Guys are getting louder and more animated. Security and some of the bigger hospital staff are screaming at the four guys. Went on for about 5-6 minutes. They were finally escorted outside. Problem solved. Wrong. The dog died in the parking lot and his dogs flipped their poop, blaming the staff for not treating their dog. Cops got called. Completely nuts. I got called to the back and never found out what came of it all. That is a sad story. Happy cake day. Playing baseball my sophomore year of HS. A dad on the opposing team scaled the backstop fence a good 20 to 25 feet to rip down his sponsorship banner after his kid got pulled from the game. That's impressive, LMAO. I spent the morning cleaning glass shards off my car and buffing out the scratches because our apartment neighbor had an episode and threw a Bible through her bedroom window. It took me a while to realize you meant glass from her window. I thought she threw a Bible so hard it broke a car window, and I was super impressed. Saw a neighbor step out on his front porch and remove his own head with a shotgun. Remove his own what? Hand? Foot? Porch? Sorry, I fixed it. He blew his own head clean off. I worked in a movie theater in the early 2000s. I had a woman come into the lobby and demand a refund for a half-eaten bag of popcorn in a plain brown paper bag. When I told her no, she started stomping around my lobby, said my theater was a temple dedicated to Satan worship, tipped over a standee, and told me not to go anywhere because I was under arrest. Then she left. So, I went to McDonald's on my lunch break. I guess you could say that was my first mistake. Across the way, there was a lady with as many plastic grocery bags as one could humanly carry. In those bags were even more bags. Bags and bags and bags. So many bags, as you might imagine. She was quite unkempt as well. I was wary, but continued to eat my meal in silence. Then, the muttering began. Apparently, she was very angry that the nannies there were not also white like the children they were minding. She kept muttering racist nonsense under her breath, yet loud enough for us to hear. We were all exchanging uncomfortable glances. A manager was sweeping nearby and heard all this and called the police. The police tried to take her away, and that's when she started ranting about how dare you try to take me away when there are nannies of color minding white children and that is unnatural, and how dare they, ! Carrot, hint. She did not say nannies of color. She was blatantly getting their ethnicities wrong without care. I saw a guy get stabbed probably 100 times in prison because he was the crip next in line to take over the compound, but he was from a different set. I knew him in the county. We were kind of close despite the fact I was white and not gang affiliated. He screamed help. Someone help me. In a way a dying man would scream. But nobody could or would, because you would be next to be stabbed if you did. I simply locked myself in my cell. I watched it all despite that. Absolutely horrifying, and not one day goes by that I don't think about it. He survived somehow, but that instant turned my life around. Kind of sounds like you have some sort of PTSD. If it is something that bothers you regularly, you can and should get help for that. Sorry you had to go through with that. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.